If you've ever thought there has to be a better way to do things, the good news is there is. Power Automate is like a digital intern, minus the coffee runs and the awkward small talk sometimes. It handles the repetitive stuff so we can focus on the numbers that actually matter. So today what we're going to be covering is what exactly is Power Automate and why it really can become your best friend when you're needing to analyze or automate structures, how to build simple workflows without breaking a sweat, and easy examples of real life options that we can be using. So let's talk about how Power Automate is going to be able to help you. So first off, I wanted to show you how you can access Power Automate. So there's going to be a couple of different options. One of the options is to go to your Microsoft account online. From there, you can go to your apps on the left-hand side, which, by the way, there's a new redesigned window that you come into. But when you come into your apps, just simply go scroll to the Power Automate icon, and you'll see it's kind of this, different colors of blue here. When you open up Power Automate, this is what it's going to look like. Now, of course, we'll walk through what everything is, how you can use it, and take advantage of different options related to using this application. So this is going to be one of your options for opening this. And what I'm going to do is show you the second one before we get too far. The second option that you're going to have is in Microsoft Teams. Now in Microsoft Teams, there's going to be a couple of options that are going to happen. One is that you can actually open the app Power Automate on the left-hand side. By going to the apps here in Teams, you can then navigate to the app for Power Automate. And you could add that, and by the way, I'm just going to search at the top. Search for Power Apps. I could just add Power Apps. Oh, I had a link for the workflows as well I could have done. So anyway, just so you could see, I could go to apps, I could add Power Apps, I could add just Power Workflows, I could go to the View More apps and add it here as well. And what I use most of the time from here is the approvals. And you'll see some examples, of course, of approvals today. So I'm going to add that to my left-hand side. I'm going to pin it so it stays here. So I'm going to right-click on the Approvals app. I'm going to click Pin. So different ways that you can access Power Automate. But first, before we dive in, I want to mention a couple of other things related to Power Automate. So Power Automate is going to include different apps. So when we look at the navigation on the left-hand side, when I go back into the overall app called Power Automate, there's different pieces to it. You can have access to Power BI from there. There's different Power Apps. There's Power Automate. There's Power Pages. There's Power Virtual Agents that we can also be using. But how are any of these going to be used in the environment of finance or accounting? Well, there's a lot of different things we can actually use these automated workflows for. You'll see some examples of some of these that I'm showing right now. So we could do invoice processing, where we can automate the extraction of invoice data from emails or scanned documents. We can route invoices for approval. We can integrate those invoice information into an ERP system. We could be working with expense reports, automating the process of collecting and categorizing things like expense receipts, triggering approval workflows, syncing approved expenses with your accounting system, or bank reconciliation. We can match bank transactions with our internal records, flag any discrepancies that it may find, generate reconciliation reports, engagement letter generation, automatically generating and sending engagement letters using templates to populate information coming from another source, mail and document automation where we can scan and digitize physical mail. We can use AI to extract or summarize the content of them. We could create tickets or tasks in systems. And of course, financial reporting is very commonly used as well. Schedule and distribute. So if we want to have a financial report that is automatically distributed every Friday at noon or whatever the case would be, pulling information from multiple data sources are things that we could have in a workflow, or sending reports via email and or uploading and notifying that the reports are there, uploading them to things like Teams or SharePoint or OneDrive and those kind of things. But a couple of best practices and tips for effective financial automation: use data validation. You always want to make sure that the information that you are providing is valid prior to using any of the workflow capabilities. Because if there's mistakes in your data, of course, whatever it is that you're generating out of Power Automate is not going to be accurate. So always make sure that your information is valid. And use standardized formats. If you're going to be sending out the same reports every week, whatever, don't be switching things up. Especially when it comes to charts and different things, make things consistent, because when they want to compare the last report to this report, if you're switching up the chart type that you're using or the formatting, it's not going to be as easy to follow or as easy to say apples to apples. And regularly audit. Audit your information, make sure that where the information is pulling from, because let's say you're bringing information into Excel from an ERP system, is that process working correctly before you're starting to run these workflows? Make sure that everything is accurate as far as where it's pulling from and who's doing the data entry, making sure that that is valid. So when we talk about this feature called Power Automate, where we can have it help us automate processes, I want you to be thinking about how you currently do things, so that as we are going through the different types of workflows we can create, you can have some background looking at, well, this is something I struggle with. I always have to do 10 steps to, take care of this. The days of us having to automate things by writing macros or doing VBA code, those kind of things are being replaced more and more with these workflows. So if you have any current macros or VBA code that you're using, look to see as we go through these different examples to see if it's something that you could just be using a workflow for. Because the benefit is that when you're using Power Automate, it's part of your 365 environment. Therefore, it is built to connect to all of your other 365. It is easier to actually work with than it would be to go in and do VBA code. Although I could use Copilot for both, I would rather have it as a workflow. I use VBA and I can teach VBA, but it's not something I'm using as much anymore. And I think I'm actually starting to kind of phase away from it a little bit because a lot of workflows can be done instead. So when we dive into taking a look at creating a workflow, how does that work? There's going to be different types of flows that we're going to talk about. There can be cloud-related flows that are commonly used with different types of what we refer to as triggers. So a trigger can say, okay, I'm going to run through and I'm going to do this, this, and this, and the trigger is going to be that this email has an attachment, or something new was added to this Microsoft list, or this changed the status. It's going to trigger things to happen. And with a cloud flow, we have the capability of doing automatic flows that automatically are based on the trigger that happens. We can have instant flows where an instant flow happens when we create it. So it's going to automatically run when we create the flow. or we can have scheduled flows. And I'll talk about a scheduled flow today just to give you an idea of what it is you could do with those. Like if you want something to happen on a weekly basis, that kind of thing. Now with the desktop flow, where we can use more desktop related applications as opposed to cloud related applications, we can do an attended flow or an unattended flow. We don't get the same options as a cloud-based flow, which cloud-based are going to be the most commonly used. We also have business process flows, where the purpose of those is to provide that streamline for the processes that require lots of steps. You're going to see some examples today. So UI flows are subsets of our desktop flows where it can focus on automating the user interface. So like if I wanted to do something related to Windows or based on my Microsoft Edge, those would be user interface type flows. But 99.9% of my flows are cloud flows. And yours probably will be too, because they have the most capabilities, especially in your type of work. So anyway, just so you know, you'll see these different types of flows in some of the areas that we refer to today. So let's say that you decide you want to create a flow that is going to be related to an expense report. Well, one of the ways that you could set this up is to, let's say that you need to have a way for someone to submit an expense report. You could have them fill out a Microsoft form. So you create a form with the appropriate fields that you need. It can automatically be then submitted, where in the submission, we can have it take that reply of that form and put it into a SharePoint list. You'll see an example of a SharePoint list today, but a SharePoint list is a more intelligent columns and rows that we can use through Teams, through SharePoint, or on its own. And that can be part of the flow where it's going to take that expense information, automatically populate it in this SharePoint list. Then we build the flow itself. We add actions to say, if this form receives a response, if we receive a response from this form, take the contents of the answers of the questions and populate it in this SharePoint list. Then we could have it notify us that we have received that request for an expense and send it through an approval process. So you have to kind of piece together the steps that you'll need to create the workflow. So it will take a little bit of planning before you design it. And of course, I'll walk you through different ways to create it. But you want to kind of think about, I have to have this to be able to do this, and then I do this. You have to kind of think about the process of what it's going to need to fulfill the right workflow capability. Now, another example would be if we wanted to create a purchase order workflow. We could create the PO request form. Once again, it could be a Microsoft form. We could have a list where it's automatically going to be populated into, where then we would build the Power Automate workflow to say, when a form is submitted, add it to this list, or however you're going to do that. We could set this up to be an email. So let's say somebody emails you a PO. You could have the setup of the workflow to say, if I receive an email to this email account, because you could have a separate email account just for POs or just for accounting, and then if it has the content in the subject of PO or in the body of the message, wherever, it can look for those types of things. It could say, if it has an attachment, we want to take that attachment and save it to a SharePoint document library. Then once it's in the SharePoint document library, I want to have it notify this particular person. There's so many options that it's hard to give you, in our short hour that we have together. It's hard to give you all of the different scenarios of what it is that you could do. But like I said, just kind of keep in mind as we're going through these different options here today, keep in mind, how are you currently doing things? Do you have a lot of manual processes? And for me, a lot of times it's, the other day, as a matter of fact, I had somebody come back to me and say, do you realize that I actually have to print this document and then take it to somebody and have them approve it? We don't want to have to do things like that. So we can use workflows to help us in all of those different types of scenarios. So let's take an example and kind of first learn what exactly is Power Automate and how can you be taking advantage of this application so that you can actually see some of the options that might be beneficial for you to use. So Power Automate can be opened, as I mentioned, multiple places. So when you're in Power Automate, you will have a navigation on the left-hand side. We'll go through a few of those navigation points so that you have a better understanding as to how you can use those. But on the home category, you're going to see on the right-hand side, it says create your automation with Copilot. This is going to be one way to create an automated process where we could simply use Copilot. So if your organization has a Copilot license, remember Copilot can be used with your 365 if you have the appropriate license. If you do, you could simply ask Copilot to help you create it. My goodness, that's probably one of my favorite things to be able to do, because why work harder than we need to? So let's say that I want to have a workflow through Power Automate that is going to, and let me give you an example of one of them that I might use. One of them that I might do is, let me actually just copy and paste this so I don't have to retype this. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, so you would come in and just describe what you want your workflow to do. So I'm basically saying create a workflow that takes expense information from a form and copies it to a Microsoft list and sends an email notification to a user. Just so you could see, I could have Copilot help me with something like this. So first, you would want to make sure that you have a form. If you're going to do this process, you would want to have that form. The form could include fields that we need the employee name, we need the expense category, we need the amount, the date, a description, and they can upload a copy of the receipt. Then you want to have, if you were going to do this, you could have a Microsoft list that is your expense requests, and you could have columns in that list like employee name, and really the same as what you have in the form, the same fields, because that information then can automatically be populated in the SharePoint list. Then we would build the flow to say, here's the name of the form, here's the name of the SharePoint list that I want this information to go to, and here's the email that I want to have sent, and here's who it's going to go to. So as you kind of think about that, Microsoft can help us with Copilot build that. I'm going to click Generate just to kind of walk you through an example of how you could use this. I'm just going to click Generate. So what's going to happen is it's going to come up and it's showing me describe it or design it. I'm on step 1. What will your flow do? So here's the suggested flow. If you like this AI generated suggestion, at the bottom you could say keep it and continue. So what it's showing is when a new response is submitted, the actions that it's going to do is get the response detail, create a new item in SharePoint list. It's going to get my profile, my email profile, and it's going to send an email. So if that sounds like, yes, that's what I described to my Copilot here, I'm going to say keep it and continue. In the next step, it first has to review your connected apps and services, because when you create these workflows, they use several other apps to actually create it. So it's using Microsoft Forms, it's using SharePoint, it's using my 365 my account, and it's using Outlook. So it has to make sure that we connect to all of those. So I have a green check mark here so I can see I'm good to go. So down at the bottom, all I have to do is click Create Flow. From there, it's going to open up the flow content, and this is where it can become a little bit difficult because it gives us a grid. And in this grid, it's showing each of the steps in the middle of the grid. And you can see that some of mine actually say invalid parameters. Now, what that basically is telling us that we haven't given it the detail yet. So when a new response is submitted, it doesn't know the form. So if I click on that square where it says when a new response is submitted, it's going to open a window on the right-hand side to help me fill out what is the form. So it's looking for the form ID. So here's a list of my different forms that I have available. I don't know why some of these are coming up with very strange text there, but you would scan through your different forms. Like I have this one called purchase order form. I'll go ahead and choose that just to show you. And then I have to give it the second step, which is get response details. So it says invalid parameters because it doesn't understand. So if I click on it, it's going to open up get response details, and it needs to know the form ID. The form ID is required for it to understand, and that's actually a code. Now, we won't worry so much about that right at this moment, but you do have the individual steps for this in your handout, just so you're aware. And by the way, Copilot is open on the right-hand side of the screen and can always help you with additional needs while you're creating this. So when you choose the correct form and it has the correct response ID, it will no longer have an error on the window in the grid. I'm going to go to the next step, the third one down where it says create item. It failed to retrieve the item, the information. That's because it doesn't understand the SharePoint site it needs, because I haven't told it yet. What is the SharePoint site that I want it to actually get the list from? So right now it's looking at this consortosharepoint.com. That's not the SharePoint site that I want. So I would need to give it the actual address of the SharePoint site that I want it to use. So I'm going to say that I want it to be this clinic site. I'm going to copy the URL for that clinic site. I'm going to go to my edit flow. I'm going to paste that URL in my site address. Then I can go to my list name. So what is the name of the Microsoft list? Well, if I go back to this clinic site, on the left-hand side, I happen to have a list called, and now these are not matching perfectly because I don't have these created technically because I don't use them, but you would see what the name of the list is. So you would need to know the name of your Microsoft list to be able to set this up. So this one happens to be called policy list. So when I edit, I can put in the name policy list. So it knows that's the SharePoint site. This is the list within that site that I'm actually going to be connecting to. So we are basically going through each one of these, like get my profile, send an email. You want to go through each of those to know, what exactly do we need for each of the details. And that's why you need to plan before you build. And a lot of times I'm doing my planning either in Word or Excel and stuff. As a matter of fact, I actually have Word documents that I store my workflows in, because if I need to make a change to it, I have my description, what is the objective of this workflow? I'm kind of anal on all this. And then I do my planning there. What triggers am I going to need? What are the details? What are the URLs? Because when I go to actually create this, I use my Word document, I'm copying and pasting. So it makes it so much easier once we go to create it. But if I go to this send an email, on the left-hand side, it's got the parameters. Who do I actually want to send this to? I would need to put in the email address of the person I want to send this to. So I'll say that I want to send it to student1@virtualtraining.company, and it's got the subject, it's got the body of the email as to what's going to be sent to that person. But of course, you can always modify it, but it automatically included that. So just so you know, once you finish all these steps, which I can close that left-hand side pane if I want, you're going to need to go to the ribbon at the top right, click Save. So it's going to save all of your changes, and if you still have any errors, it's going to notify you. And I like that part of it because it lets you know if something is wrong. So it's saying invalid parameter for create an item, the error is site address is required. I did give it a site address, so I'm not quite sure. If I select that, I can go into explain this, I can go into summarize, or I can actually, and by the way, it opened up a flow checker on the right-hand side where it's showing me that error, and I can have it open exactly where I need to go to fix the error from the flow checker that opened on the right-hand side. So it's got great help along the way. So it took me there, and I thought I copied and pasted that site address, which I did, so I don't know why it all of a sudden got rid of it, but let me go back to it. So let me go back to my SharePoint again. I'm going to copy and paste in that SharePoint address. Otherwise, I could have gone to the drop-down list, and if it is in the drop-down list, or I can enter a custom value for that list. Okay. For some reason it's okay. Now maybe it's going to be okay. Okay, so now it looks like it might be okay. I'm going to save it again, and it didn't come back with any errors, so I should be ready to go. Now, of course, I don't have the perfect form matching up with my list in this example, but I just wanted you to walk through and see exactly how this could be created, especially if you're starting with Copilot to help you build it, which I highly recommend. Notice Copilot is open on the right-hand side also. So this would be one option for you to use. But let's go back to the main screen, and I want to talk about some other options that you have for creating your workflows. So this was the home page where we could simply give a description to Copilot and have it help us. The other option is to go to the left-hand side and click Create. From the Create, you can see it tells you at the top 3 ways to make a flow. You could start with an automated cloud flow, an instant, a scheduled cloud flow, etc. going across. Or you could start from a template. So it's going to show you templates down at the bottom. And what these templates are actually showing you, there's some categories here under start with from a template. So you could click on a category, like if I wanted an email template. When you do that, it's going to show you a card for each one of the template options, and there's lots of options. It's going to show you icons representing the applications that will be needed for you to use that workflow. It will give you a description, and it even has an ID number at the bottom right. Okay, just so you're understanding what you're seeing. But if I scroll down on this window, the Create window, at the bottom, I could simply start with a connector. So if I know that I want to be using SharePoint or I want to be using Microsoft Forms, I could start that way. But the second most common, besides using Copilot, is to use a template. Microsoft has a template category on the left-hand side. If you go to that templates category, this would be a great way to get started as well. Because yes, you're going to see even more than what we saw in the previous window for topics, different categories to kind of break down the different types of templates. So if you want to go into remote work, you want to do something that's related to a button, you want to do data collection. Each one of these categories will show you all the different templates that are built based on that category. But as you can see, if I scroll down to the bottom of this list, there's also see more templates. So there's even more templates that are available than what you saw originally. It's kind of crazy. All these different options that you have. So don't start from scratch, is what I'm really saying. See if there's a template available that you could use instead, because starting from scratch is not very easy. Once you're used to it and you understand how things work, it's okay, but just so you get that idea. But anyway, let's say that I don't know for sure which category the template is in. I could be in the all templates category. And then let's say that I want to create a template that is going to take emails, and if it has an attachment, so I want to create a flow that saves PDF attachment from emails with a subject to a folder in SharePoint. So if somebody sends me an email that goes to a specific email address and or has the subject of the word invoice, it says invoice someplace in the email, and if it has an attachment and it has the invoice in the content, we want it to automatically save the attachment on that email directly to a SharePoint folder. I could simply put that in the top and it will locate whatever templates might be related to that. Now you could see it came back with forward emails to a channel, create a planner task, schedule a reoccurring message. And this is actually a good way to kind of understand what's actually available. Spend some time looking through the templates. Okay. Now, I'm not going to use any of these suggestions because what I really would probably do is go to the email category. There's an email category that we could just simply go to. Even if I didn't put in a description, let me kind of jump back here. And it was telling me, by the way, that it couldn't find things related to the search I was putting in there. I'm just going to refresh that window here real quick. It was being a little weird here for a second. Let me just jump back in here real quick. So anyway, when you are in the templates, really check things out because it's amazing what you're actually going to find. So if I just go to email, it's going to be all the templates directly related to working with an email. And I want it to be related to okay, I'm going to say email has attachment, save to SharePoint, something like that. It will automatically come back with whatever it finds that is closest related. Now, once again, it didn't find what I was looking for exactly, but let me show you how. And once again, it's being kind of weird on me right now. I just ran an update prior to the class. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, just so you could see, I actually could find it. And here's one that will save an email to OneDrive for Business. So as I'm kind of even just looking through form processing to email in SharePoint, and I could just put in the description SharePoint. But as you can see, as I'm kind of going through these, add an item to SharePoint and send an email. Here's an email list. But let me just go to this top one. This one up here where it said save 365 email attachments to a specified OneDrive for Business folder, just to give you an idea. Now, of course, that could have been a SharePoint document library, but same difference. So first, it has to be able to connect to the right applications, just like before. I'm going to click continue down at the bottom because it is connected appropriately. Now I can walk through and build this. So what do I want for the email? So it's giving me the squares for each of each condition. Once again, if I make a mistake or what I get an error of some sort, it's going to help me with that. But if I click on new email, you can see the parameters on the left-hand side. And I want to say only with attachments. I'm going to click yes. So I need to change that to say Only with attachments, yes. Now, which folder are the messages coming into? Do they have an importance status? You want to put in whatever criteria it is that's going to match for you. Then go to the conditions. And in the conditions, we can say, in this field, it contains this. So I could say if it's from a specific person, I could choose whatever that value is. It contains is equal to, but let me actually say, instead of from, let me actually put in a different field. And I'm going to use an expression to do that. Well, actually, I don't even need an expression. I'm just going to go to my lightning bolt here, and I'm going to say that it's going to be in the subject. Now, I could say subject or the body. So the subject contains, and I'm going to put my value, and I'm going to say the word invoice. So I got rid of the field that was there. I clicked the lightning bolt icon. I chose the field from the email template, subject. So I'm basically telling it what I need to have it look for. So in the subject, I want it to say invoice. Now, if I think I'm done, I could go to save, and it will check to see if there's anything that is missing. Well, and it should be telling me on the right-hand side, it says, welcome to Power Automate. Actually, it's telling me my flow is ready to go, but it really isn't. Because what do I want it to do? It didn't give me the action that I wanted to save to OneDrive. So I would need to come into the plus sign and add that action in to tell it this is what I want it to do. This is relatively new, by the way. When I come in to add the action, it gives you a search, and I wanted to save to OneDrive or to SharePoint, whatever I want. I'm going to say save to SharePoint so that it can find the appropriate action. So it's looking through my actions list. So discard checkout, get properties, get file properties, run a script, save from builder, do a to-do list. It's giving me all these different actions that it thinks I'm looking for. I'm not finding my appropriate action here for whatever. I know it's a standard action. Let me see if it will find it here. Oops, I meant to click save more. Let me go back to that action here. I'm going to right click and delete it because I don't want that action. Sorry about that. That was me. And let me jump back in here and say SharePoint again. Sorry. Then I'm going to go to see more because that's going to show me all of my items that are available. And I want it to copy a file. So I can add in and say, what is the name of the site that I want it to go to? So give it the name of the site. So I'm going to say I want it to go to this clinic site. Then I need to give it the file identifier. Where is it going to go to? I want to apply to each attachment for a specific user. It's based on a new email with that body of the message. And what folder do I want it to go to? Oops, I didn't mean to click on that one. I would choose the folder that I want it to go to based on the content. Has attachment. Oops, I was going to put that up here. But anyway, just so you could see, this is why you want to kind of plan things out so that it will help you to come back and build this. So anyway, I won't go through all those steps because we're going to run out of time here real quick. But always make sure you go back and save so that if there are any invalid parameters, you can get those fixed. You can see on the right-hand side, it opened up my flow checker. It will automatically I can click on it to have it automatically take me to where I need to go. So if I need to choose a specific folder that I want it to go to, I'm going to say I want it to go to legal documents in that SharePoint Clinic site. I want it to go to my legal documents into this specific folder. I could have a folder called invoices, whatever the case might be. So just so you could see, you would walk through that. Now, do we always have to go to Power Automate to create these flows? Actually, no, you don't. You could go directly to, okay, it's telling me my flow is ready to go. I could go directly to the application. I could go directly to OneDrive. I could go to SharePoint lists. I could go to a SharePoint document library. And they have the capabilities of creating these automated processes right within the application. And it already knows to use that application. So an example is I happen to be in this SharePoint site called Clinic. I went to the left-hand side and clicked on this policy list. This is a Microsoft list with columns and rows of information. I can go to the menu at the top, the ribbon, and I could go to Automate. From Automate, I could go to Flows, and I could set a reminder for this particular policy to say, send a notification when this is due. I have a column called due date. So I could set up a workflow that will automatically remind me so many days ahead of time of when this policy needs to be reviewed based on the due date. Or I could go into rules and I could create a brand new rule. Or, I have a lot of ors to this, I could use a built-in quick step. Let me first show you the rules, then I'll show you the new quick steps. Rules looks like this, and this has been the same since the beginning of time, I swear. But basically it says, if an item is modified, I could start out with that as a template, or a new item is created, an item is deleted, or a date is approaching, I could start with one of these actions. So if I say somebody adds a new item, I would then fill out the details. When a new item is created, always send an email or set a value. I can put in the email address of who I want the email to go to. And I have different fields, or I could just say me. I want to have the email be sent to me. Customize the message. I could just say a new item has been added, has arrived, whatever. Once I'm done, I click create. So that rule is now in place so that if anything new gets added to this list, I'm going to receive an email notification. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in a title. I'm going to choose a due date. So I'm filling out a new form here. I'm going to choose a status. I'm going to put in my subject. I would put in the person responsible. A little slow, sorry about that. A document link, anything else, and then I would save that. As soon as it's saved, I'm going to receive an email message letting me know that a new item has been added. So you can be creating these workflows directly in the application that you want it to be set up for. Much easier to do things like that. But let me go back to automate from the menu here in this list again. Quick steps is another new option that we have with Power Automate features that give you little templates that you could get started with to make it easier. Do you want to draft an email when something happens? Do you want to start a Teams chat? Do you want to set a value in a specific field? Execute a flow? What exactly do you want to do? Well, let's say that I want to set a value. So I want to set a value, and then what column do I want that value to go to? Let's say I want it to go to the title, and I want it to be this value, whatever the case might be. Give the quick step a name and click create. So we can set up things directly by using different options under the automate menu. Now I can configure approvals from here as well, but I'll show you another way to do approvals, because if somebody submits something, adds in a new item, does that actually need to get approval from someone? We can be doing these same types of actions here in a Microsoft list and in a document library. They both have the same capabilities. But just to show you real quick, if I go to integrate, I can also access Power Apps, Power Automate, or I can go into Power BI from here, just so you can see that is available. But let me show you this through a document library. How can I set up a workflow directly from a document library? Well, let's say that I'm in a document library and I want to be able to send a file for approval. I need to have someone approve this document, whether it's an invoice, it's a PO, doesn't matter what the type of file is. It's a financial report that we're going to distribute to the banks or whatever the case might be. Go to your file within your document library, right-click on the name of the file, or go to the ... menu. From there, from the menu, hesitate on Automate. You'll see that you have flows. Just a second, it will load it. And it has a feature here, a built-in workflow called Request Sign-Off. When I choose that, we can then create an email that will be sent to Outlook to whoever we tell it, giving them a link to this document and asking them to approve or reject it. Look over this document, blah, 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 give them the information that they need. So I'm going to choose myself as the approver. I'm going to type in the email message, please review this report before I send it to the banks, whatever. At the bottom, I'm going to click Run Flow. This is called an instant flow because it immediately has sent notification to myself via Outlook, email, and in Microsoft Teams. So in Microsoft Teams, I'm actually going to receive an activity in just a second when it catches up to me here. It's going to give me a new activity where the activity is going to be the request. So I just got the notification into my activity. When I go to my activity, I get the same thing in my email. It's going to show me that Jolynn has sent an approval request for this file. So I have a link to the file. I can see the status of it. You know, it was requested by this person. It's pending response. And in the document library, it has a column telling me it's pending response. Down at the bottom, after I review the file, I can put in a comment. This financial report is ready to go, whatever. I put my response in there. I click approve or reject. It's automatically going to update the notification column. Instead of pending, it's now going to say approved, and that person gets notified back, letting them know that their request was approved. Here in Microsoft Teams, it's going to automatically show me an approvals app, same approvals app that I had on the left-hand side. These are all the approvals that I have sent out. So I can see the one that I just did. It was approved on this date, this time. It was sent by this person, and it was sent to this person. Now, by the way, I could have sent it to multiple people, not just one person. And I don't, of course, normally send it to myself, only here during trainings. But just so you can see, it's super easy to be able to use that. Approvals is its own app, which is part of your 365 account by default, and you can use it directly here in Teams or through your Microsoft Power Automate. So back in Power Automate, it's available as an option on the left-hand side, just so you're aware. But just so you can see, if I go back to that document library, that file on the right-hand side in this column called Sign Off Status, I can see that it's been approved, because it updates that column that is automatically added once you send an approval. So we can be doing that not just here in a document library, but in a Microsoft list as well. We can do the approval process. But what else can we do? Either in a document library or for a specific file. Another approval option available here and in lists is if you go to the ribbon at the top or go to an individual file. I'm going to go back to Automate again, and just so you could see, I had flows, just like we saw with the list. We have rules, we have quick steps, and I have configure approvals, just like we saw in the list. But if I go to the menu, I have more choices. From the rest of the menu at the top, I can set up an alert. An alert can send a notification via email to whoever you want to say something has changed. something's been added, something's been deleted, etc. You set it up how you want. And let's say that I'm responsible for this document library, and I want to know if someone deletes a file within this document library. Sorry, for some reason my window closed. For some reason it's not opening my alert. Let me go into manage my alerts here for a second. I'm going to add the alert from here, see if it will work quicker. I'm having something weird going on. But anyway, just so you could see, oops, I'm going to go to my legal documents, because I could do this way, or I could do it the other way that I was trying to get into. So let me see if it will take me now. Might have to refresh. Anyway, what that will actually do is it will allow you to set up an alert either individually on a file you can right click, or for the entire document library that will send a notification via Outlook, like I said, based on if something changes in a file that you created, something new is added, something is deleted, whatever you set that up for. How often do you want to get the notifications? You can have them come automatically when something happens, or you can get a weekly update, whatever you tell it. Once you save that alert, anything that happens here, you'll automatically get email notifications. So just to show you, let me slide my Outlook over here, because I have this Power Automate. Please approve. This is the email that I received. I made a change in some of mine, so you could see I've got this notification. Jolene signed off on your item. You can see this notification I got from SharePoint Online, letting me know that an item was added to this policies. So that's that notification that I had set up from the list. Here's an item that was added, and it's letting me know that a new item was created. So I get notifications for anything that goes on, either via Outlook. I can get notifications in Teams. I could create a workflow that says, notify me in a post in Teams on this team, in this channel, etc. Think about what's going to work best for what you need help with. What are the things that you're kind of seeing some issues with? You manually have to do things. Don't do things manually. Think about setting up these automated processes instead. So quickly back into my Power Automate. On the left-hand side, you have a Learn category. Highly recommend going through the different learning topics that they have available. Creating workflows, how to use cloud flows, etc. You can see it's going to give you a lot of different options on getting started with these workflows, which is going to really help you to be able to come in and manage your flows. Whether you're starting from Copilot, you're starting from scratch, you're using a template, you're doing a workflow directly within the application, which is highly recommended. Otherwise, I use templates or Copilot the most. So those would be the three that you want to get started with so that you can really get an idea as to how these are going to work for you. Okay?